Hi, my name's Michael Crawford. I'm your training instructor for this demonstration. Today we're going to cover create a new project. Creating a new project is fairly simple because we've created a wizard that allows you to go through the process of setting up a project's file structure and its folder structure, along with its sheet templates and any other driving sketches. So the process is fairly simple, but once we've created a project, then we need to work with that project. And we need to ensure that at the very beginning in the early stages of a project that we've got the right information. So first thing I'm going to cover right now is all about sheet templates. What sheet template information is required and how the sheet template information is utilized, and what if you've actually not selected the right sheet templates when you've created your project, and what you can do if you don't. So let's just go through that process and get a bit of an idea on how a zone is created, how a driving sketch is added, how project settings are set up, and we'll go into great detail of how the whole process happens. Okay, so first thing we do is we select and open the Project Command Center, which can be done by going to the Steel Designer Pro, SD Projects, and then Project Command Center. Once you've opened it up, then go over to the Projects tab, and in here you've got New Projects, but we don't want any of those projects. Alternatively, you can right mouse click at the top, turn on your Projects tab, and then up here on the left hand side is New Project. We're going to go to New Project here. Okay, now this interface here is important because the data that goes into your project when you create your drawing batch processes such as PDFs and updating and swapping out your sheet templates, putting in revisions, this process automatically gets added every time. So we want to make sure that this information is filled in. So the first things first, a project number can be any number containing letters and numbers and no special characters. So we've already set it up so that if you were to click the minus key on your keyboard, you cannot put a minus key in there or any other special characters. Project numbers can be any length. I like to keep them short, however that's up to you. I'm going to create a basic project number 0002. Now it can be any length, any number of letters and numbers. The very first thing is your project client, then the project name. By default, you can leave out the project client, come back and get the project number, but you cannot leave this page by clicking the next button for the wizard without putting in a project name. If you don't fill this information in, you can come back later and fill it in, and I'll show you how that's done. But for now, we should fill it in so that you can see where it comes up in the drawings. So project client, I prefer to use caps because in the drawings it will come up with capitals. We don't filter out lowercase or uppercase, but if you want your drawings to show lowercase, just type lowercase in here. So project name, I'm just going to go test project street. Now the project street and the information that comes in here is how you might want your drawings to represent it. Now let's just say your project happens to be on a mine site, project street's not going to be very handy. However, the information that I put in here will be displayed in the drawing sheet, and I'll show you how that works in just a sec. But first, we'll go through this process, we'll take a screen grab of it, and then what I'll do is I'll open up a sheet template and I'll show you where all these fields actually reside in the drawing sheet template. They are required on your drawing sheet template so that it can fill this information in and display it on your drawing sheet. So project street, so I'll just put in project street, project city, I'll just put in state, I'll spell it right, state, and then P code, and then country. For me it's Australia. Project email and phone, that's just for you if you wanted to have a contact information so that if you you don't have to search through your contacts list, you're in SolidWorks and you just want to find out where they are, or the project email for the customer. You don't need to fill those in if you don't want to, but they are available and you can utilize those as extra fields. So now we filled all that information in, we go over to next. This is your zone location. So in here you're going to set up your zones. Remember the file structure in the very first video? The file structure for zones, by default we have a main. So main is it's something that we've just put in place. You can override it. So if I just wanted to put in test 1, and then for your code T1 for test 1, and then we can go test 2 and then T2, and we add as many as we like depending on the project, this is a test 2 zone. All right, now we've got 2 zones. Just make sure that when you do hit this, you hit enter, and that'll set up another row below. Okay, because there's nothing in it, it won't get added, but you've got to commit the data to the data table. Now we click next again, and now we've selected our zones. We want to go into setting up our project settings. Now this is different for every project, or the same depending on how you work. If you happen to work in the same location all the time, you can set these, once you set them up, you click the set as defaults, and then this information will be collected from the database and displayed in this interface over and over again. So I'm just going to go through some of these things and let you know that some of them are not being used at the moment, but they will eventually, but at the moment they're not. So the project vault location is really important because that's where you're going to store all your projects. And you can see mine is just C drive projects. Really simple. I don't have that many subsidiary subfolders in there past the main folder. That's it. That's my root location for where all my projects are stored. It keeps it nice and short and simple so that when I have massive projects, my file length, as we mentioned in the previous demonstration, it doesn't impede the 250, and that's the trick. You want to try and keep that as short as possible. We are going to back this up. Now if you don't want to store it on your C drive and you have another drive, it happens to be an E or whatever it is, you can go to that drive. Just make sure that it is a map drive, and do not put your projects on a network. You're not going to get the maximum speed. So this is where you're going to put your projects. Okay, now if you have EPDM and you use EPDM, you can set it up so that that's a project root for your PDM or EPDM. Okay, the next one is our internal revisions. We have nothing working with this at the moment. It's put in there for future development. Same with external revisions and GA drawing numbers. So those three are not being used at the moment, but they are there for future development. At the moment, we set this up for you to manually put in whatever you like in the revision control within the document management process. Okay, so the next one is obviously something that will change depending on which country you're in. So units can change between metric and imperial. Part drawing template, that's not going to be used. Okay, so don't worry about that. Fractions and decimals, you need to know what this is going to be. Obviously, if you're in the United States, you'd want to use fractions or decimals. The next thing is our detail drawing numbering process is going to be using marking. You don't want to use filing because then consolidation doesn't come into play, and then you end up with a lot of files that are identical to one another. So use our marking system. The next thing is our sheet library location, our sheet template library location. So this is the folder where our sheet templates are stored. Now we need to point to the right location. We need to know that this folder exists, because in the next step we're going to select our sheet templates. So if we don't have this selected, it'll come up with an error and tell you that it can't find the sheet templates. So you want to make sure you've got the folder, you've got your sheet templates in there and the sheet template images, and you can select them. Okay, the next thing is obviously your drafting standards. So your drafting standards that you want to use, it points to those as well. This is what we use for our drawing creation tools. You need to have that pointing in the right location as well, because it reads this information once you've set it up. Okay, so obviously in Australia we use third angle, so you can change that to either third or first. Obviously in Australia we use Australian sections, but if you're in another country, your project may be, if you're in Canada, you might want to tick on Canadian style. However, you can have multiple types of standards. So that means multiple standards, Australian or American. And for those Canadians that are right up there that actually do both Canadian and American, you can have them both ticked on. So just be wary, you can have both. At the moment, I'm just going to set that as Australian. Next thing is we want to by default set up use consolidation. Use consolidation is something that you don't want to turn off, but you can turn it off if you don't want it on. The reason we turn it off is so that you might be working on a little project and you don't want to consolidate. I'll get into consolidation later in more detail, but for now just leave it on. Obviously, we want to consolidate. The question is, which level are we going to consolidate at? So, for instance, your customer might want you to create a massive project, and in that massive project, you've got multiple zones. And on the job site, you want multiple zones of steelwork to be delivered to site at that location. You would, in that particular case, you would consolidate by zone, and that means that anything that happens to be in one particular zone is all going to be compiled together and it's going to be delivered to site. Now, if you're going to just be working on a little project and you're a one-on-one guy, zone is by default always the one that you will use, because you won't go up into the project level to do any of that consolidation at that level. What it also means is that even though that we may have set this up, we can still come back and change these settings, and I'll show you where that is as well. Okay, so at the moment I'm just going to leave them as they are. I'm happy with what I've got here. I might use this over and over again, so at the top I can click on set as defaults. Now I'm going to go across and go to the next step, which is choosing our sheet templates. So now this is where our sheet templates come in. Now it's pulling the sheet templates from the folder that you specified earlier, and you can see it here. It's got the full name, full path of what it is. Now sheet templates, you can have as many different sheet templates as you like in that library folder, because it's going to keep pulling them from that library folder. The library folder itself, Steel Designer Pro Library, we can change that. Okay, that's a setting that's in the application settings. I will come back to the application settings later in this document, in this training video. Now, first of all, these are images. Okay, they are images that are being shown, and behind them are sheet templates. SolidWorks does not allow you to do an image preview with its Document Manager API on sheet templates. Now what we want to do, there are 4 drawing types that we have. 4 drawing types that are used within the Steel Designer Pro. The first one is our general arrangement drawings. The second one is our welded member drawings. The third one is our section drawings, and last but not least is our plate fittings. And if you're an ex-Tekla user, it's a fittings drawing. We do split out our section details from our welded members, okay, and our plates are on separate drawings, but it's up to you on how you want to set up your projects. Our libraries are set up this way. Our libraries always work this way. If you wanted to, in your welded member drawings, you can throw all your detail in there on top of that, but you will be doing that manually. Okay, so now what we want to do is we obviously want to assign which sheet templates we're going to put into the project, and to do that we use a drag and drop. So if you click on the item that you want, so in this case I'm going to click on the general arrangement, hold my left mouse key down and drag it over the top of my general arrangements. Now if I accidentally drag it over to one of these by accident, because it hovers and it automatically places, you watch if that happens. So just over the top hovers. I haven't taken my mouse button off, and you can see it flickering. It's automatically assigning the drawing to that item. If you've made a mistake, don't worry, you just grab the right ones and place them over the top. So the next one's going to be our welded steelwork, so our welded member drawing goes in there. You can see it changed. Then the next one's going to be our Australian sheet templates section, so we select that one. And then last but not least, all of our plate drawings are usually an A4 for metric, and then for imperial something around about the same size. Okay, so in here you can see a list of all the fields that are coming in. Okay, these are all the fields that we've applied to these sheets. Now I'll get into drawings and what's required for drawings in a moment, but I just wanted to let you know that that's how we put sheet templates in. Next thing, we click next to go to the next step. Now we're going to choose a driving sketch. Now this is pulling from your library. So up the top right hand corner we can assign an existing driving sketch. Okay, so we've got different types of driving sketches. You can assign driving sketches for buildings, different types of buildings. So in this particular case I'm just going to grab something very simple. So if you read up the top here, it says select the library that you want. So I'm going to select the zone, that I want. So I'm selecting the zone. And then what I do is I click on the sketch that I want. So in this case I'm just going to select this basic one. And because I've selected test 1 as a zone, I double click on this, and then hold my left mouse button and drag it over onto the no image data. And what you'll notice is that when you click on the test 1 pull down, you'll see that it's been assigned a library model file to go in. That's our driving sketch, right? That's been assigned to that. So it's going to put that in for us. Now I can go to the next one and select the next one in the tree. So I go to test 2, and test 2, I grab the next driving sketch, double click on it, and then bring it over and then drop it onto that image. Now you can see I've got two different assigned items. Yeah, this image does not change when you click between them, but if you hold it long enough and highlight over the top, you can see that they are both now got library models assigned to them. You can go in and change the values here so that when you insert it, it can update values. You put custom properties into your driving sketches, and you can drive the custom properties at this stage if you wanted to. Alternatively, obviously, you just open the part up and you make changes to the custom properties. The custom properties are linked to dimensions, so it allows you to be able to change your driving sketch on the fly. So now we've covered that out, we just click the next page and then we go create, and that'll create our project for us. And off it goes. And you'll notice now that the project has been added, and I've just clicked the projects tab up the top here because I want to open up a project, and you can see the information associated. If we double click here, we can change this information ourselves now, and if we click update. If you forget to put information in, you can always come back and change it if you need to. My advice is if you've issued drawings, do not change this after the drawings have been issued, or unless your customer has picked them up and asked you to want to make changes. However, I would not change these unless there's nothing been issued. Alright, so that's your project information. Now we've got our different zones that have been added, and you can see the information associated with the zones have been added. Now if we go into the zones and open them up, you can see now if I go to test 1 and click open zone, you'll see the zone has come in. Okay, now zone 1, you don't want to give you descriptions for your zones. Even though that we have an area code, you don't want to make them too long. Test 1 was what I put in there, and you can see that the driving sketch has been applied. Okay, now the driving sketch has been applied, we've also had a data link. I'll cover that later so you know what a data link is. You can see that when I inserted the zone sketch, the driving sketch, it's made it an envelope. Okay, we'll cover envelopes later as well. And you can see that the file system's quite straightforward. It's normal SolidWorks in an assembly, but it's been automatically placed in position for you. Now let's just open up the project and have a look at what's going on in the project. So we go back to one. There's the root project folder. So when I created the project, it automatically created the root project folder with the project number, and then it's created the two zones, and inside that folder we've also got sheet templates, and these are the sheet templates that we selected that have been copied into the project. These sheet templates are used when we're doing our document processes. I'll cover that later. Now it's also put in the project assembly, and then in each folder for the zones we have the zone assembly and the driving sketch, and you'll notice that that's the first one we selected, and then we've got the second zone, and then we've got the driving sketch. Okay, it automatically does the filing for you. You don't need to go in here and change any of that filing. Alright, now when we've got that, we've got all these in place. We've got the zone created, we've got the project created, we've got the sheet templates created. Okay, now we're going to focus on what we can do to kick off this project's sheet templates and make sure that the sheet templates work the way they need to. So let's go back to the very early screen when we came into this, and we can go to the projects, and we're going to go new project again, and I'm just going to show you right now which sheet template information data is associated to the very initial stages of setting up. So this one here, I'm just going to take a snippet. There's the data. I've got two screens, so I'm just going to pull it off to the right and leave it there for a second. I'm going to close this off, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to go new drawing. These are just default SolidWorks settings. You've got to set up your templates to point to your library so you know where they are. I've just set this up for this particular purpose to show you how this is done. I'm going to browse. I know where my sheet templates are for my project, but I'm going to go to the library first, and then I'm going to come back, and what we'll do is we'll change them so that we know which ones have changed in the project. So if we go to the Australian library where I've got them kept, and of course in your library of your country you'll have them there too, sheet templates. Now I'm just going to have a look at our welded member sheet template, which is this one, and I'm going to open it up and insert that into this drawing view. Okay, so we've got that set up. Now this is a sheet template. That's different to a drawing template. Sheet templates hold the data and they hold all the lines for your borders. Realistically, this is your sheet template data. Okay, and sorry, they're your hole anchors, I should say, and then there's a border that comes with SolidWorks. Typically I usually delete that. You can leave it in there, but I typically delete it myself. So now this sheet templates come in, and if you have a look at the data, we can see that there is a lot of data, custom properties that are associated to the data that's got to go into the drawing sheet. The items that cannot be removed obviously are, our very first one is our revision information. So you need to keep the revision information in there if you want to use our revision process in our document manager, which is batch process. Okay, so you want to keep that in there. So we've got 5, 6, I think we've got 7 revisions in there. What happens is if it hits the last revision, by default in the code it will copy the 7th revision. Once it's used 7 and it needs to go to 8, it will copy the 7th revision to the first revision and start the next revision on the second revision. That way you know what the last revision was when you get to that point if you go past 7 revisions. Now, revision is definitely something we need. That cannot be replaced or changed, and then you're starting to see right now some of the information that's coming through. So if I pull that over and bring this over, you can see the project number gets assigned, and I'm sorry that this has dropped off. I'm going to stop clicking on things. Where is it? There we go, right there. So project client, so you can see client, you can see street, okay, it's in there. You can see city, you can see state, you see postcode, okay, you can see project country, that's in there as well, and the others being project email and phone 2 are further down. But I'm just letting you know that this information here is coming into these custom properties. Now, where are these custom properties being used? I'm not going to come back to that, so I'm going to close that off. If you go down to the bottom right and edit the sheet format, you can see here by default we've got text as an attribute, and we're going to edit that text in a window, and you can see that the very first bottom line is mark, and that's this one here, PRP sheet mark. And then we've got description, country, state, street, client. We've got these two in here as well, which you don't put in to your project at project level. They are added extra description custom properties that we can utilize on a batch process if you wanted to. Okay, so they're in there as well. So mark gets added to the drawing, and that becomes the drawing sheet, okay, because we use a custom properties mark in our drawing sheets. The actual drawing sheet, when it gets saved out as a PDF, uses this mark. It doesn't use the file name of the drawing. I will get into consolidation and how that works in a couple more videos, but right now I'm not going to go into that. I just wanted to show you how this is set up. You can see that I've got multiple lines for city and state. You can break this up however you want on your drawing sheet, as long as you have those items included in your drawing sheet to be used. If you don't use them, they'll just come out blank. Over here on the left hand side, we've got our revision table, and of course if you highlight over the top, you can't select any of the revision information. Usually you can, so it's not showing up. That's because if you click on revision and edit the text in the window, you can see what we've done. We've actually used the same text and we've created a line for each revision. Instead of creating a single line for each row or a single line for each custom property, we've actually used the same text with all the revisions in the one text block. link back to the custom properties. If you've not linked custom properties before, it's fairly simple really. You go in, and I'm just going to hit enter here. You can go in and add custom properties to this, right? But in this particular case, I can't do that while I'm editing in the text window. Okay, for some reason my text window hasn't got its information, so if I go in and double click on it, you can now see that I have information in here, and I can, because I've double clicked on it, I can now link custom properties from the current document, right, and select them and assign them down through here. When they're assigned, they get that PRP link, so you know what they are. So when we edit that text window, you can see that it's PRP revision, which means it's coming from the sheet custom properties. Obviously, if you want to change this information and any other information on the drawing, or if you want to use your own template, just make sure you carry those required custom properties across. If you don't want to use our revision information, that's fine. You can use EPDM, set up your own revision information through EPDM and use your own templates. If you are new to this and you want to use our templates, please go right ahead. You have free rights to do that. If you want to change out our logo, it's simple as just clicking on the logo once and then hitting delete, and then inserting the logo by going through the tools, and I think it's from memory, sketch tools, insert sketch picture, and that'll bring it in, and then you can scale it to wherever however you like and wherever you like onto the drawing sheet. Make sure that you are editing the sheet format before you put it in, that way it becomes part of the sheet. Now, if I was to do that, I would go simply this way, because I'll show you how it's done. Actually, I won't do it, but I'll show you what happens when I move that out onto a new location, just to show you that maybe I've changed my logo. So I'm not going to change the logo, I'll keep the logo as it is. I'm going to exit out of my sheet template. And now I'm going to update my sheet template with my projects templates. Because my projects template has come from the sheet template that I'm working on now has come from my project, and I know that I've copied it from my welded member, not copied it, opened it up from my welded member sheet template, I can save over the top of it. Because I've made the changes, I go File, Save Sheet Format, and then I can save over, not my library one, but if I wanted to, I can. And you'll notice that my library one is A3 welded member. It'll be different for the US. I'm going to go to my project, because I know where my project's set up. And my sheet templates are here, and I'm going to save over the top of my welded member sheet template. And you can do this after the project has been created, because this is not linked to any database. The information in it's not linked to any database. It gets used when we do our batch processes for our drawings. So if I save over the top of that, I've now got a new template for my project. I would suggest that if you've done this for your project, you might want to add this as a sheet template to your library so that you can reuse it over and over again when you create your new projects. So you can save over the top of the sheet templates that you've already assigned to your project via your library. If you have made a mistake or if you need to update them, you can do that by the way I've just done it. So now that sheet template's been added to the project, later down the track in further demonstration videos you will see that that will be used. Now if I just click save here, it's going to want to save a drawing. Just hit cancel and exit out and don't save, because you don't want to save the drawing to anything. So that sheet template is now part of my project. Sheet templates are fairly simple. It depends on whether or not you want to update your template, but you need those field names to use our application. It's really important. Okay, so now we're just going to have a look at our driving sketches. Some say the best thing to do is to not link these to your custom properties. It depends on what you want. Let's go and have a look at this. So a driving sketch, as you can see here, is a component that has lots of sketches inside of it. We, through experience, been using SolidWorks for over 20 something years now. I think since 1997 when it first came out. I was right there on the forefront of using it. I must admit that it's evolved over the years, And back then 3D sketches were common. We used to use 3D sketches a lot, and we found them to be a little bit unstable, but we've always gone back to, for some particular reason, 2D sketches on planes. It's because we can switch our sketches from one plane to the other. It gives us that flexibility to be able to do that if need be. And not only that, it makes it really cool so that we can pull things back and use the rollback feature to see how our driving sketch was created. So breaking up your sketches is probably very important. However, we tend to use 2D sketches. Our 2D sketches are very, very important. The direction of the 2D sketch is very important. So keep in mind that even though you may draw in a specific direction, you may need to change it. It just depends on what you're attaching to it. Now, a driving sketch and the top-down driving sketch approach I will cover in the next video so that you're well aware of it. The direction of the sketch segments that we draw, I'll cover that as well. But for now, I just wanted to let you know that this is what a driving sketch is. We attach everything to driving sketches. Everything, meaning connections, plates, sections, welded members, frames, everything gets attached to our driving sketches. You can have as many driving sketches as you like in your project. At the moment, this is what we call a driving sketch, even though it's a component, a driving sketch component. We simplify it to driving sketches. And that's pretty much what a driving sketch is. It sits at the top of your project. It's excluded from the bill of materials so that it does not come into the bill of materials by making it an envelope. If you've never seen an envelope before, you just click on the item, go to component properties, and then you can click on envelope. An envelope will make it so that it's excluded from bill of materials and not show up in the bill of materials. Sometimes your driving sketches might have a solid in them, and you've decided that the best thing for you to do is to create a solid and attach everything to a solid. I'm not saying that's the best approach. I'm just saying that there are other approaches that you might want to use in order to be able to create your driving sketches. The best approach for me is to create sketches, but if you get into bins, chutes, hoppers, you might find that a solid and then attaching your plates to the solid might work well for you. However, what you want to also make sure is that with your driving sketches, when you open them up, that because you've got solids inside of them, you don't want those solids to be counted in the mass. And by default, when you set up SolidWorks for the first time, if you go to the mass properties, usually it's right mouse click up here on this toolbar location, and then go to tools and turn on tools, and then you go up into the mass properties. Okay, because I don't have any solids in here, I have to put a solid in order for it to work. There is a setting in SolidWorks which we cover in our training that you need to set. So if I go over to our training here, and then you go, where are we? Project filing system. We'll come down here and have a look. SolidWorks settings. So in here you can see that we cover it. One of the steps. I think we do. We probably don't. But you should be aware that by default, no, it's not covered. Yep. By default, it collects the mass of hidden bodies and components, so you want to turn that off. If I actually insert a section in my zone assembly here, just by going in and selecting a section, you can see here this is my library of sections, and then I select a sketch segment and then hit my tick, and you can see that it adds a section to my project. There's my section component. Not only did it insert my section component, it obviously brought the drawing along as well with it. So just be mindful that happens. Now I've got a solid in here, which is good. So when I go back to my mass properties and click on it, SolidWorks by default has included hidden body components turned on. You want to turn that off, otherwise your masses are going to be out on items, because we do use a lot of envelopes. Make sure that's turned off. Okay, so I think that pretty much concludes our training session for this video. Thank you for your time. I hope you've learned lots, and if you have any questions, please send an email to support@steeldesignerpro.com. We'd be happy to help you if we can. Okay, thank you for your time. Goodbye.